a bit about, I've already mentioned some of this, but how different this is from Masters of Finance programs, okay? The key difference, okay, is that we're focused on the practice of asset management. I don't know of any other program that does that. There are some very good Masters of Finance programs, and they do have courses that deal with asset management, but they're much more about, they have corporate finance pieces, entrepreneurial finance pieces, all good things. This program is not about that. It's really about asset management and the practice of it as opposed to just the theoretical side. Okay? And I've looked at the other competing programs. They're great programs, but they're different, okay, on that dimension. The other unique piece, as I mentioned, is this collaboration with practice. So David Swenson, huge part of that, but the fact that we're located here in New Haven, close to the AQRs in Greenwich, the Bridgewaters in Westport, as well as New York City, we're going to leverage that. And we can leverage that because of, I have a few connections, but David in particular has a lot of connections, and we're going to bring those people to campus. Okay? Often, by the way, I can tell you this, I hope I don't get myself into trouble, but academic faculty often are a little worried about bringing in practitioners to teach the courses, right? Because we view ourselves as we want to be just pure academic science. I give Yale SOM credit and my colleagues here credit, recognizing that this field is particularly applied. We have to have some of these practitioners in here, and we get the right ones in, it's going to be great. So some of the, take David, for instance, trained as an academic under James Tobin, the Nobel Prize winner here at Yale, and applied that to a career in asset management. There's lots of people that are going to be like that. We have, for instance, my colleague at AQR, Andrea Frazzini, was a professor with me at the University of Chicago for 6 years before he bolted for practice. He'll be teaching in this program. He understands both worlds, and it's going to be that merging that's going to be very valuable. Okay. And by the way, no one else has David Swenson, so let's just say that loud and clear. Okay. All right. So the other thing is, what this does is it's going to provide a set of courses that I think are pretty unique. So you're going to get the standard asset pricing theory and asset pricing methods. There's not too many places that have state-of-the-art machine learning data science, but there are some. We certainly have it with Brian Kelly and some other colleagues, but MIT has it too. They've got some great people there, no question about it. What I think is different that nobody else has is some of these practical courses. The portfolio management course that I'll talk about in just a second, it takes the tools you're going to learn in the first half of the year. This is a course jointly taught by Will Getzman, who's a professor here, and Osman Nalbanoglu, who's on the investment committee at Bridgewater. They're going to talk to you about how to build portfolios in practice from start to finish. Take the model, apply it, use implementation methods to figure out what the expected trading costs are, size it in terms of capacity, do a business assessment of what the competitors are that are out there, figure out what your clients' needs are and how to meet them, and put that whole thing together. And I'll tell you, from where you start to where you end, there's a lot of things to do, all right? And that's something that you're not going to get at any other institution that I'm aware of. Okay? And I've looked at some of the courses that are there. It's something that most academics can't give you. And the combination of having an academic here, Will, and Osman, who does this for a living at the largest hedge fund in the world, is going to be pretty powerful. Same thing with things like alternative asset classes. David has pioneered the idea of investing in private equity, buyouts, natural resources, all kinds of things. And he's done this so successfully, and he knows the best in the business at this. He's going to bring them in to talk about this. I don't know how to buy almond trees, right? It's just one example. Things of that nature, how to assess them, where to get the good data, where to build a model to do this. You're going to see some things like that, which is really interesting. And those types of investments are very neat and very different and a unique advantage. I already mentioned the legal landscape in the Yale Law School. We're going to partner with them for a course, as well as risk management will be part of implementation. And then I've also got two of my colleagues at AQR are going to teach a really cool course on ESG investing. So everyone familiar with ESG? Environmental, social, governance type investing. It's a hot topic. It's a debatable topic. I'm not sure it makes sense, but I'm happy to have this debate, okay? And I'm saying that to be honest here, which is that there is this debate. It's going on in Europe, it's going on in Australia, it's starting to go on here in the United States. It's something people care about, it's something people care about, but how well it works with investment analysis remains an open question. And I've got two of my colleagues, they were actually former students of mine, Lukasz Pomorski, who's a managing director at AQR, head of ESG investing there, and Marina Neisner, who used to be a professor here at Yale, now works at AQR. They're going to teach a great course on this where they're going to challenge you to think about, well, what are the trade-offs? Everything in economics is about trade-offs. If we care about these things, ES and G, what does it cost us? Should it cost us something? Can we do good and do well? The answer is yes. Can we do good without sacrificing any cost? Probably not, okay? But how we manage that, how we think about it, I think is a really important concept. And as I said, today, the hot topic is ESG. 10 years from now, might be a different set of issues. In fact, we have a tough time defining what is it in S that people actually care about. It's changing all the time, right? But the tools you'll have, the tools you'll be armed with to deal with that are going to be incredibly important. And so that's what you're going to get out of a course like that. I don't know that another course like that exists, not at this level. So that's something that I think is pretty exciting. Okay, and I mentioned proximity and the networks that you'll get here at Yale. We think is going to be really valuable as well. And also, I should mention too, internship opportunities, and I'll come back to this in a second. You know, the connections with the EMBA students, with the Yale network, and with everybody you're going to be interacting here at SOM also is going to help in terms of facilitating that. Yes?
Actually, I have a question about the internship thing. Because from my understanding, that usually programs 1.5 or 2 years. So basically, first summer you do internship, the next year you return as a full-time.
Right.
But for this, it's 1 year program.
It's 1 year.
I'm not sure how does that.
I'll get to that in just a second. We're going to try to facilitate that. Let me come to that in a second. So, okay, and we already talked about the broader role for society, something that we're interested here as our mission here at Yale. Okay. So the other thing that I would say is a unique feature, and I'll come back to the internship in just a second when I go through the curriculum. But how are we doing on time? When do you want me to be done? Okay, good. The other thing that I think is missing from a lot of these programs, or at least not given enough attention to, is data-driven problem solving, okay? I'll be honest, my frustration with a lot of the Masters in Finance programs, even the ones we initially talked about at Chicago 10 years ago, they're mostly financial engineering and financial mathematics programs. And I gotta be honest with you, nobody uses that stuff anymore, okay? We hire from those programs at AQR because the students are smart. They can do math. The skills that they actually learn in those courses are not that useful to our day-to-day. It is useful to solve some math and be able to do some statistics, no question about it. It's not what I'm saying. But would you be that much better off doing that versus, say, a master's in applied math? Probably not that different, okay, or engineering. What we want to do in this program is do a bit of both. You will solve plenty of equations in this program, I promise you, and do a lot of statistics and a lot of math, but it's going to be applied. It's going to be applied in a way where it's useful and where you can, and in particular, the data-driven aspect. My course, which is on factor investing, which is the backbone of what we do at AQR, it's actually not, from a math perspective, it's very easy. Okay? Do a little matrix algebra, some calculus, that's about it. Okay? Heavy, though, on the data science. And that's the part that, not that I'm saying these are complicated tools or methods, but how you think about them. Just thinking about what goes on the left and right-hand side of a regression is not an easy problem. Okay? And just understanding that, it's going to be very useful. And I don't think that's paid enough attention to in these courses, in these other programs. Okay? And the reason I say that is, when we hire from these programs, my job at AQR is to train people to do things like that. And they're always amazed at, like, wow, I wish we'd gotten this when we were in the program, right? I'm learning it as we speak now, and they're perfectly capable of doing it. So we're going to force you to do that. That's going to be a big part of this. Another nice feature that we're going to leverage our contacts in industry is we're going to have a course called the Asset Management Colloquium. Okay, so it's a series of colloquia where you're going to get to hear from some of the most famous investors one-on-one. They're going to come to a class that's going to be smaller than this because we'll see how big the program gets. But it'll be an intimate session with David and I facilitating it, bringing in some of the best of the business. So I've already twisted Cliff Assis's arm to speak. We're going to get David's going to get Nancy Zimmerman to come in and speak. I'm just throwing off a few names here. I don't know if you know any of these investors, but they're pretty famous investors. And they're going to come in and talk about a little bit about their careers, but also about some of the topics of the day, whatever they want, and you're going to get some one-on-one interaction with them. And that's something that we're pretty excited about, something that certainly David can help a ton with. Okay? As I mentioned, different from financial engineering and financial mathematics. There'll be a component of that in this program, but much more geared towards data science and applying this stuff in practice. Okay? So it is applied asset management, still a lot of math, programming, data, and rigor, but state-of-the-art and useful. Okay? And you know, it is true that back when I got my PhD in the mid-90s, what Wall Street firms were hiring were PhDs who could solve partial differential equations. You don't need to do that by hand anymore. It's not even that useful anymore in terms of, in fact, how we price options, because solving those partial differential equations was useful in options under a strong set of assumptions. You don't need to make assumptions these days. You simulate a ton of stuff. That's what you're going to learn to do. You can simulate the entire option surface across you know, millions and millions of possible prices and figure out what the methods are. In fact, Steve Ross, the famous economist, one of his last papers before he sadly passed away a year and a half ago, was actually he invented the option pricing framework theoretically and was currently using methods from computer science to actually price options differently using data.